Funny thing about being chosen, people think it means they're special. They think it means they've got some grand purpose, some golden path laid out just for them. And maybe that's true, maybe there is a plan. But here's what they don't tell you. Being chosen, it's not some fairy tale, it's not a parade in your honor, it's a target on your back. It means struggle. It means isolation. It means waking up one day and realizing you can't go back to the way things were, even if you wanted to. People like to believe that being chosen means being special, being admired, being lifted up on some golden pedestal where the world claps and says, "Look at you. You're different. You're important." But that's not how it works, is it? No. Being chosen, it's not a prize, it's a burden. It's a responsibility, a weight that most people would collapse under, because the truth, the real, ugly, messy truth, is that most people don't want to carry anything heavier than their own desires. They don't want to be picked for something bigger than themselves. They want the idea of greatness, but not the cost that comes with it. Now, here's the fun part. You didn't get a choice. Isn't that funny? You didn't wake up one day and say, "Yeah, I think I'll take the hard road today. I think I'll walk a path filled with trials, betrayals, pressure, and expectations." No. It was handed to you, or rather dropped on you like a weight you didn't ask for. And you know what makes it even funnier? Most people won't even see it. They won't understand why you're different, why you move the way you do, why you don't just let things go like they do, why you can't just be normal, because normal is easy. Normal is comfortable, but chosen means carrying something that other people refuse to. Oh, and here's where it really gets good. You'll start to notice something. The more you embrace it, the heavier it feels. The more you step into it, the lonelier it gets. You think that sounds dramatic? Think about it. Look at history. The ones who change the world, the ones who really shake things up, they don't get applause at first. No, they get resistance. They get pushed aside, mocked, ridiculed. Why? Because people hate what they don't understand. And someone walking in their purpose, really walking in it, that's terrifying to them. Because if you can do it, if you can push through the weight, then what does that say about them? What excuse do they have left? See, that's the thing about carrying something bigger than yourself. It doesn't just test you. It tests everyone around you. It exposes people. It forces them to see themselves in a way they don't want to. And not everyone will like that. Some people, they'll resent you for it. They'll try to convince you that you're imagining things, that you're overthinking it, that you should just stop making things so complicated. But deep down, they know, they see it, and it scares them because they know they weren't chosen. And the easiest way to deal with that, try to pull you down instead. Now maybe you've felt that weight. Maybe you've walked into a room and sensed it immediately, the shift, the unspoken tension. You don't even have to say a word. Your existence alone is enough to disrupt the ones who are comfortable. And that's the real joke, isn't it? The weight you carry isn't just about you. It's about what it reveals in others. It's about how it forces people to confront the truth they've been running from. And if you think they're going to thank you for that, well, let's just say you've got another thing coming. But here's where most people crack. They start looking around, wondering why it's so hard, why everything feels so heavy. They start thinking, if I was really chosen, shouldn't it be easier? Shouldn't I have some kind of proof? And that's where they mess up. because they're expecting the reward before they've carried the weight. They want validation before they've paid the price. But that's not how this game works. No. The weight comes first. The struggle comes first. The isolation comes first. Most people won't make it past that part. They'll drop it, they'll walk away, they'll convince themselves it wasn't real, that they were just being dramatic, that they were never meant for anything bigger. And maybe that's true. Maybe they were never strong enough to begin with. But you're still here. You're still carrying it. And that means something. That means everything. Funny thing about purpose, it doesn't come with a welcome party. No balloons, no confetti, no crowd cheering your name. Nah, purpose is a quiet thief. It sneaks in, rearranges your life, and before you even realize it, you're standing alone in a room full of people who don't recognize you anymore. And that's the thing, isn't it? You wake up one day and suddenly you're different. Not because you tried to be. Not because you wanted to be, but because something bigger decided you had to be. And people love to act like they support growth until it's someone they know doing the growing. See, at first they'll clap for you, they'll smile, they'll tell you they're proud, but the moment you start moving in a way that threatens their comfort, that's when the mask slips. That's when you see it. The shift in their eyes, the hesitation in their words. They don't say it outright, of course. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, they wrap it up in little comments. You sure you want to do this? You're acting different lately. Maybe you should slow down. There it is. The moment they realize you're not just talking about change, you are changing. And that scares them, because it forces a question they don't want to answer. If you're stepping into something bigger, then what does that say about them? If you're doing what they were too afraid to do, if you're walking a path they avoided, then what excuse do they have left? And so they do what people do best. They test you. See, purpose doesn't just isolate you. It invites resistance. It pulls out the worst in people, the insecurities, the jealousy, the fear. They'll call it concern. They'll act like they just want the best for you, but really, they're trying to measure you. They're watching, waiting, hoping for a crack. Because if you fall, if you fail, then they don't have to feel so bad about never trying. But you see it, don't you? You feel it. You walk into rooms and sense the weight before anyone even speaks. The eyes watching, the whispers floating just out of reach. And the funny part, you haven't even done anything yet. Just your presence is enough to make people uncomfortable. Just your existence, your potential, your calling, it bothers them. And isn't that interesting? Isn't that funny? You're just being, and already you're a problem. Most people don't make it past this part. They fold under the pressure. They shrink themselves down, make themselves smaller, more digestible, just to keep the peace. But the ones who are really meant for something bigger, they learn a little secret, a trick. See, the goal isn't to fight the resistance, it's to expect it, to welcome it. Because resistance, that's the proof. That's the sign you're moving in the right direction. That's the confirmation that you're walking a path not everyone was meant to walk. And the best part? The people who try to stop you, the ones who doubt you, the ones who make you second guess yourself, they're the ones proving exactly why you have to keep going. Because their discomfort isn't about you, it's about what you represent. a mirror they didn't ask for, a reflection of everything they could be but were too afraid to become. And that's why they'll never understand you. But that's okay. You weren't chosen to be understood. You were chosen to move, to be, to step into something that was never meant to be comfortable. Because comfort, that's for people who don't carry weight. And you've been carrying it for a long, long time. You ever notice how the moment you start walking in your purpose, life gets messy? Not a little messy, not a spill your drink and wipe it off kind of messy. No, I'm talking full-blown destruction. I'm talking doors slamming shut in your face, people turning their backs, plans falling apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. And it's funny, isn't it? You'd think stepping into something bigger would come with rewards, with smooth roads, with a little, respect. But that's not how this game works. See, the moment you start stepping into your calling, life doesn't hand you a golden ticket. It hands you a test, a long, grueling, soul-crushing test. And the worst part? You don't even realize you're being tested until you're halfway through, gasping for air, wondering why everything suddenly feels 10 times harder than before. That's when it hits you. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't bad luck. This is war. Because purpose, it costs something. And people don't like to talk about that part. They like to paint it all pretty, make it sound inspiring. Follow your dreams, they say. Trust the process, they say. But what they don't say is that the process will break you first. It'll take everything you thought you knew about yourself and burn it down. And you'll be standing in the ashes, wondering if you even have the strength to rebuild. That's the trick, though. That's the real question. Because everybody wants the reward, but nobody wants the fire. Nobody wants the nights of doubt, the betrayals, the heartbreak, the weight of feeling like you're losing when you were supposed to be winning. But let me tell you a little secret. The fire is the proof. The struggle, that's how you know you're on the right path. 'Cause nothing valuable ever comes without a price. And let's talk about the people, huh? Because the people. The ones who cheered for you at the start, where are they now? The ones who swore they had your back, who said they believed in you? Funny, isn't it? How quiet they get when the road gets tough. When you start succeeding just enough to make them uncomfortable, but not enough for them to openly celebrate. Because that's the thing, people love a good success story, but only when it doesn't remind them of their own failures. Only when it doesn't make them question why they settled. So they start whispering, doubting, pulling away. They act like they don't see your growth, like they don't notice you're moving differently, but they see it. And it scares them. Because you're doing what they never had the courage to do. And instead of facing that truth, instead of dealing with their own discomfort, they project it onto you. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're the one changing. You're the one making things difficult. That's the game. That's the test. Can you keep moving even when you're walking alone? Can you push forward when every sign is telling you to quit? Can you keep believing, keep fighting when everything in you is screaming to give up? That's where most people break. That's where they turn back, where they shrink down, where they settle for less because less is safe. But you weren't made for safe. You weren't made to blend in, to be comfortable, to fit into the little box they built for you. You were made for more. And more will always cost something. It'll take your patience, your comfort, your pride, It'll strip away everything weak in you until all that's left is the part of you that can't be broken. And that's what they never tell you. The ones who make it, the ones who step fully into what they were made to do, they aren't the strongest or the smartest or the most talented. They're just the ones who refuse to quit. The ones who took every hit, every loss, every moment of doubt and kept going. Because they understood the truth. The fire wasn't there to destroy them. It was there to refine them. You ever notice how people love the idea of being chosen until they realize what it actually means? Oh, they want the title. They want the recognition. They want to stand in the spotlight, soaking up the applause, feeling important. But the second they feel the weight of it, the real weight, the kind that crushes, they start looking for a way out. That's the thing about being called for something bigger. It doesn't just sound heavy. It is heavy, and most people, they don't have the spine for it. See, when you're chosen, you don't get to live like everyone else. You don't get to move through life easily, smoothly, unnoticed. No, no, no. You're different, marked, and life notices. It sees you trying to rise above the noise, and it pushes back, hard. Things that come easy for others, for you, they take war. People who never had to fight for a thing suddenly seem miles ahead, while you're clawing your way up from the dirt, and you start wondering, why is it so hard? Why does it feel like you're being tested at every turn, like you can't catch a break? But here's the truth no one likes to admit. The ones who are called for more have to survive more. Because being chosen, it means you're dangerous. It means you're a threat. It means you were built for something beyond the ordinary, and ordinary doesn't like that. It doesn't like to be reminded of its limits, so it tries to break you, keep you small, make you doubt yourself. And people, the people. They'll smile at you, nod along, act like they support you until you start moving faster than them. That's when the energy shifts. That's when the silence starts. They'll say they want you to win, but only if it's convenient for them. Only if it doesn't force them to confront the fact that they never even tried. And that's where the real challenge begins. Can you keep going when the applause stops? Can you still believe in what you were made for when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when no one seems to care? Because that's the test. Not the talent, not the opportunity, not even the obstacles. It's the silence, the space between where you are and where you're going. Where the doubt creeps in, where the fear makes its move. That's where most people fold. They take the silence as a sign to quit, as proof that they were wrong, that they weren't meant for more after all. But what they don't realize, the silence is just part of the process. Because the ones who are truly called, the ones who are really meant for something greater, they don't need the noise. They don't need constant reassurance, don't need the world to validate them. They know who they are. They know what's inside them, and that's what makes them unstoppable. See, people get it twisted. They think power comes from being seen, from being praised, from having proof that they're on the right path. But real power, it's quiet. It's built in the dark. In the moments no one sees, in the struggles no one claps for. And you've been fighting battles no one even knows about, carrying weights no one else can even see. And yet, here you are, still standing, still moving, still breathing. You think that's a coincidence? No, no, no. That's proof. Proof that you were built for more. Proof that you can handle the fire. proof that you don't need the approval, the validation, the easy road. Because easy, that was never for you. You weren't made to fit in, to be comfortable, to walk the same path as everyone else. You were made to stand out, to push through, to break whatever tries to break you. And that's the secret, isn't it? The people who make it, the ones who step fully into what they were created to do, they're not the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who took every hit, every loss, every moment of doubt, and kept going anyway, because they understood the truth. The weight wasn't there to stop them. It was there to shape them. People like to think they have power, that they're in control. They walk around with their heads high, chest puffed out, spitting out words like they mean something. They convince themselves that if they talk enough, if they make enough noise, then the world will bend to their will. But what happens when all that noise disappears? What happens when the room goes quiet, when the crowd stops listening? When they hang there, that's when the panic sets in. That's when they start to wonder if they ever had control in the first place. Most people don't know what to do with silence. It's unnatural to them. It makes them nervous, jittery, like they're standing on the edge of a cliff and someone just told them to take a step forward. Because when there's no sound, no distractions, no noise to drown out the thoughts they'd rather not think about, well, that's when the real show starts. That's when people start unraveling. That's when they start exposing themselves without even realizing it. You see it all the time. Someone gets called out, put on the spot, and instead of owning it, instead of sitting in that uncomfortable silence, they scramble, they defend, they explain, they twist their words into knots, all in a desperate attempt to make the silence go away. Because silence means one thing. It means there's nowhere to run. No excuses, no justifications, no clever little tricks to change the subject. Just them, standing there, face to face with reality. And reality? That's not a place most people like to visit. Funny, isn't it? How people will do anything to avoid facing themselves. They'll lie, they'll manipulate, they'll build entire lives around a version of the truth that makes them feel safe. But silence strips all that away. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your carefully crafted image. It just sits there, staring at you, waiting. And that waiting, oh, that's the part that really drives them crazy. Because the longer the silence stretches, the more they start to hear the one voice they've been trying to drown out this whole time, their own. People think strength is about shouting the loudest, about making sure their voice is the one that dominates the room. But real strength, real power, that comes from knowing when to stop talking, from understanding that sometimes the best move you can make is to say nothing at all. Because when you don't respond, when you don't react, when you let them sit there with their own words hanging in the air like a bad joke, that's when you see who they really are. That's when the mask slips. Most people aren't ready for that kind of power. They need validation, they need reassurance, they need someone to tell them they're right even when they're wrong. And when they don't get it, when they're met with nothing but silence, that's when they start questioning everything. Their arguments, their beliefs, their entire understanding of how the world works. It all starts to crumble, piece by piece. And you don't have to do a thing. Just watch. Let them fall apart on their own. The best part, they'll never admit it. They'll never say, "Hey, you got me. That silence, that made me think." No, they'll pretend it didn't affect them. They'll act like it was nothing. But inside, inside they're replaying every moment, every second of that silence, over and over again, wondering why it felt so loud. Because that's the trick, isn't it? Silence isn't empty, it's full of everything they've been trying to ignore. And here's the real kicker. When you master silence, when you learn how to hold it, to wield it like a weapon, you start seeing things differently. You start realizing just how much people reveal when they're trying not to. Every nervous glance, every fidget, every forced laugh, it all tells you something. It tells you who they are, what they fear, what they're running from. And once you see that, once you understand how much people need noise to feel safe, you'll never see the world the same way again. Because the truth is, people don't fear silence. They fear what it means. They fear what it exposes. They fear that without all the noise, without all the distractions, they might have to face the one thing they've been running from their entire lives, themselves. People like to believe that if they say the right thing at the right time in just the right way, everything will fall into place. They think words have some kind of magic, some kind of power that can shape the world around them. But here's the fun part. Words don't mean anything when they're coming from the wrong place. People talk and talk and talk, but half the time they don't even believe what they're saying. They just say what they think they're supposed to say, what they hope will make them look good, what will keep them in control. But control? Oh, that's the biggest joke of all. See, people are afraid of silence. They're afraid of what happens when they don't get the last word, when they don't get to explain themselves, when they don't get to bend the story to fit the version of reality they've built in their heads. They panic. They get desperate. And when someone's desperate, well, that's when you really start to see what they're made of. They'll start throwing words like punches, hoping that one of them lands, hoping that if they say enough, they'll drown out whatever it is they don't want to hear. But the truth? Oh, the truth doesn't go away just because someone's talking over it. You ever notice how the people who talk the most usually have the least to say? They fill the air with noise, hoping no one notices that there's nothing underneath. But if you sit back, if you just watch, you start to see the cracks. You start to see the moments where the mask slips, where the real person underneath peeks through. And those moments, those are the ones that matter. That's when you see who someone really is. Most people don't have the patience for that. They think silence is weakness, that not responding means losing. But real power isn't about having the last word. It's about knowing when you don't need to say anything at all. It's about being comfortable in that space where other people get uncomfortable. It's about knowing that the moment you stop playing their game, they lose control of it. And people, oh, they hate that. They hate not being in control. You ever sit in a room with someone who needs to be right, someone who just can't stand the idea of not having the final say? Try this sometime. Just let them talk. Let them go on and on. Let them trip over their own words. Let them build their little tower of logic, brick by shaky brick. And then say nothing. Watch what happens. Watch how they squirm. Watch how they need you to engage. How they start searching for any little crack in your silence. Because deep down, they don't actually want to convince you. They want to convince themselves. And when you don't give them that validation, when you don't give them the reaction they were hoping for, they start to unravel. People think silence is passive, that it's something weak people do when they don't know what else to say. But the right kind of silence, That's not passive at all. That's calculated. That's deliberate. That's the kind of silence that gets inside people's heads, that makes them start questioning things they didn't want to question. And once someone starts questioning themselves, well, the game's already over. The funniest thing about it all, the people who fear silence the most are usually the ones hiding the most. They use words like a shield, like a mask, like a wall they can hide behind. But silence kicks that wall right down. Silence makes them face things they'd rather not face. It makes them realize that no matter how much they talk, no matter how much they explain, they can't change what is. And for some people, that's the scariest thing in the world. People are always looking for an answer, for some kind of sign that they're on the right path, that they're doing the right thing. But not every answer comes wrapped in a nice little speech. Sometimes the answer is in the waiting, in the not saying, in the not reacting. Sometimes the answer is letting the silence do all the talking. And if you know how to listen, if you really know how to listen, oh, you'd be amazed at what silence can tell you.